Okay, motion's on the table and seconded to see Rich in place of Brian Bagley. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so we're all
Welcome
set
to the
for
board.
roll. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time to read the minutes, and I believe everybody has a copy.
Yeah, I move acceptance of the minutes, April 30, 2018.
Everyone finished reading them? A motion's on the table to approve them. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, next on the agenda is the clarification of crumbling foundations. We had that come up at our meeting at our last meeting. And I spoke to Mr. Prasinelli because he was the first selectman at the time. And he said that Beth did send a letter of intent to the Department of Housing, which was the first step. And there were very limited guidelines and instructions, and he's got in parentheses, which were like pulling teeth to get them, okay? And they come up with a guess of how many residents would apply for it. So they did a guesstimate. He couldn't recall the exact amount, but it was sent in by email from Beth, from his computer. And he said he can't imagine that we didn't follow up on the next step, and that at this point, John Courtney came in, and the Department of Housing was running the grant in secret. The article quotes Department of Housing Commissioner Klein saying towns were all well aware of when the money must be spent. But the Coventry town manager, Don Essler, said, "We were not notified of the time frame until after the application process was completed." And Joe Courtney did go on and have an article in the paper where a lot of the towns missed out on this because of the Department of Housing and the way they ran the grant. So that was the story on the grant. So I wanted to clarify that for everyone. Okay, any questions on it?
I have an opportunity now to jump in.
I'm sorry?
I have the opportunity now, they're opening it up again
Oh,
to jump in
wonderful.
with another town. But a
Excellent.
lot of that wasn't what the entire article in the newspaper had said at that time. So, but I'm gonna be taking that opportunity and speaking with someone tomorrow, so.
Excellent. You still have to do the guesstimate, or do you have a better idea of how many people will be asking for it?
I don't know. It's not asking for it, just to get the grant, so
That
we'll
will be
see.
putting in for it, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Now we're coming to the town of Stafford budget. And Lisa, you wanted to clarify first with the line item on the energy?
Well, I guess there was some discussion in the last meeting about the utility fund. So I'm here to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Well, the question Mr. Shook brought up was, why isn't it in the budget? Why is it a standalone and a set-alone?
Okay, that stems from the town meeting in November of 2014. Let's see. These are the minutes from the town meeting. And I highlighted section 3 where it says it will establish a separate fund.
And I agree, I know, because I was the one that did.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised.
You know, and
Yeah.
I think the $400,000 is a wash. You know, as I explained in the last meeting, the intention of that energy fund was not to take anything off budget.
No, it's the revenues are supposed to offset the payments.
Correct, and I believe if you put the $400,000 in here, you're
Yep.
gonna show the expense too.
Right.
And it's a wash.
Right.
But without knowing where the money is and where that fund is, you know, it's kind of leaving a lot up in the air. There was talk about $300,000 coming back, so does that mean we have $800,000 surplus in the fund? Because we gotta have a balance of minimum of 500 before we take money back out.
The 300,000 that was discussed, I had mentioned to Jane that the town had a surplus of 685, the general fund, according to the audit.
Yeah.
So the town in that year took out 300,000 for the geothermal
So that was a
additional
That
expenditures.
was a reimbursement.
Correct, that was,
That
so
makes
I'd
sense.
say,
Yep.
put that back and then use the 385 to help offset that huge mill rate
Right,
increase.
because that's a reimbursement.
Right, and now we have new numbers, which bring us to a much better place. But I do have more information on the utility fund that we can look over. I can show you where it's at. But because it wasn't really on the agenda, I didn't want to have handouts and things that you weren't aware of.
Well,
So,
also, Lisa, bring up the fact that this is the third year.
well, 18-19 is the third year that we'll budget for.
And we're gonna vote on
And
it.
then we have minutes that say after the third year, the Board of Finance would evaluate where that utility fund stands. Is it breaking even? And if not, how do we bring that back into the budget if it's not breaking
Well,
even?
if it's not breaking even, where's the money coming from?
Well, we have a memorandum of understanding that the town general fund can float until we receive the anticipated revenue to get it back.
But the state statute is, if you spend over $20,000 that's not budgeted, it's supposed to go to a town meeting.
It's right here in the memorandum of understanding, that
But-
we can loan it the money with the fact that we have anticipated that revenue coming in.
But that anticipation, how far down the road does that anticipation go?
Well, that's where year 3 comes into play, and that's where we need to decide what
But I
we're
don't
gonna do.
understand where the Board of Finance had the authority to take money out of the general fund without it being approved by the taxpayers.
Yeah.
The memorandum of
This is from
understanding.
Bruce Chudwick, the attorney, that says we could do it. That's why they set it up that way. Because the first year, it's gonna fall short, because it started, we had to make the
And we knew
payment
that.
before we had any revenue. Right.
And we knew that, and I was expected to go to a town meeting to have to pick up the shortfall.
That's what Bruce said. So you can have this copy if you want, to show you what it's about.
Thanks.
Is that a copy, Lisa?
Yeah, it's a copy.
Okay.
That answers just about all of it.
Do you have any other questions on it?
No, I guess that, I believe Lisa.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the town of Stafford budget from anyone? Steve, I thought you had a couple of questions last time that you wanted to.
Yeah, but I think I asked, like, I was concerned about last year's budget. Right now, we're still projected just over $1 million, right? 1.022 million short on last year, right? So we have some anticipated revenues, or not revenues, givebacks coming from the town and the Board of Ed. Do we have a better idea on those yet, or?
Everybody's looking at you, Christine.
Well, originally it was $500,000
Yeah,
from the
that's
board,
what
that's still
we
the
have.
same.
Yep.
And then about 200 or so.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if everything stayed true, and I'm not trying to hold you to it, we're about 700,000 that'll make up part of that shortfall.
Right.
And
And then
then-
we have transfers in the budget that we typically do to capital projects and things like that. If the money's not there, we can't transfer it, so it could very well,
We could
Make
save
up-
more money because we don't actually
because we don't
do
actually do it.
additional things.
Right. And then the freeze,
Okay.
how much we can spend. The projects for Rick Zulik, we were gonna discuss whether or not he was using up all the town aid road.
Which he's gonna have to.
So if, we're able to uncover that, or if he doesn't use it, we would have that available for next year as well.
But that can only go to the town aid road, right?
Correct. That only goes to highway, yep.
I think that was the only question I had on that for last year.
And you said we're in a better place
That's why
now, and supposedly, reading the newspaper, the state released a lot of funds to the municipalities.
Correct, you have all those new numbers in front of you.
Okay, that's what that reflects.
That's what all that report is.
Okay.
Yep.
How much did we get back altogether?
Over $1 million.
over there, okay, so that's what it is.
Diane, how did the school do on this? Because I knew that you got some of your grants back. So you did as well, did well?
Yeah.
We're actually, from the state level, we're projected at our so last year's ECS, actually, yeah. So this year's ECS was projected to be at was projected to be at 9.3 before all of the holdbacks and things like that. Next year's ECS is actually projected to increase. So the state is projecting to give us more money as part of the ECS grant for next year. So 9.675 is the projection. But these are projections. They haven't
I know.
finalized anything. And
I know.
like I said to you at the
Anything can
last
happen.
public hearing, until they actually give us our true MBR, we're sort of guessing a little bit.
That's why we tried to hold off as much as we could until the final numbers came in. With all of the meetings we've had, Mrs. Mitta can tell you, we've been holding off, trying to get it to the end, and I think we did. I think it was a good thing that we did hold off. All right, so, what about the service district?
I don't have the service district.
That would normally
It's
be
part of the
presented.
town budget.
Right,
Well, yeah, but Ed would
That
normally
goes to
present
town
it.
meeting.
I'm sorry?
Ed would normally present that, and we would.
Right, and I don't have it. I don't have it.
We never had him come in to present it, did we?
We had the budget available at the
At
second
the
public
public
hearing,
hearing,
and there was no questions on it. And I do have what the bottom line is for
Well,
the
that's what I
service
wanted,
district
yeah.
budget, but we don't have the projected mill rate for that.
Okay, what's the bottom line for the,
Service district, 404,516.
And what does that put their, the extra mill rate at for
I
them?
want to say it was 2.28. I'm going to look it up in my email, because I did send Beth back that information.
I thought it was even closer to 3 than that.
Is it changing from last
No,
year?
that's from the first public hearing. There was no two.
Lisa, do you know if it's changing from last year?
Yes, it went up
It went up?
from, I think it was 2.26 and it's going up to 2.28.
Minor.
Yeah.
is there any question on that?
You don't have the handout from the public hearing, do you? Do you have it, Gary, in your folder there? Because it does have it in that handout that was for the public
does?
hearing. Yeah.
I was the service district commission chairman for the first 5 years, and it's significantly increased. They charge a lot of things to that account.
Lisa, how about I just show it to you and you can,
Perfect, thank you.
you can ask me to try to find it.
No, the second.
Yes.
See, people got made fun of the binder the other night. Right?
This page right here. Do you mind if I?
Are you seeing it?
Oh, no, Lisa. I don't want to rip it out. I'm gonna give it back.
You defaced me.
Oh, wait,
Yes, it's 2.28.
Yeah, I got it, that's, yeah, all right.
2.28 will be the new one?
Anyone got a stick? I'll give it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the budget? Because it's going to be going over to the selectmen. This is it. We can't really wait much longer because, as you know, if it doesn't pass this referendum, we've got to go to another one. And we need to have it in place by July 1. So we're getting down to the
I
wire.
think the tax collector would like to have it before that.
Yeah, I think everybody would like that before that.
Where are we right now with the state returning the funding?
Where we are right now with the state is this paper that we passed to, right there, it's right in front of you. That's what
And
we are
then
right
there's,
now.
where's the other one? That actually shows, yeah, that there,
Yeah.
do you have that? This ridge
Yeah.
shows you what they've given back. And then I redid this to reflect that.
And this is what
And then
they
it's
voted
updated
on, so they should stay with. Sort of like last year.
Well, exactly.
This is it.
There's
Now-
no guarantees,
I
but,
did ask you a question that has to do with the last budget. We don't know if there's still any possible money coming from the state for their holdbacks for this year.
correct, I don't have any
So we're just gonna assume zero.
zero,
I-
right, they're not
I
gonna
talked to.
You're talking about for which year? This one we're in now or the coming?
This
year?
The one we're in now.
Okay.
I talked to Representative Vale earlier today and asked him that question, and he said as far as he's aware, there is nothing that's gonna extra come back to us
This year.
this year.
I
So
didn't
that's your
imagine there
budget.
would be.
Well, it was clear from all the accounts and the reports of people from the controller's office that they were running a large surplus, despite all the stuff you read in the paper. They still have $1.5 million in a rainy day fund, and yet they were able to give back most of the money to cities and towns. So everybody knew it was happening, it was all politics. You know, the one side had to depict the disaster coming, and Connecticut and all that, everything. And the other one was waiting to, at the most opportune time, you know, please the cities and towns by giving them their money. But next year, they're predicting, you know, a greater deficit overall, but who knows? I mean, with all the things happening, a third nuclear submarine down in Groton, and they're trying to legalize sports betting now that the Supreme Court has ruled that you can do it, I mean, we could end up with actually a much better situation than we had now. But I always thought that some of this would be coming back, and that's why I think we all voted to do the right thing, to wait until the last possible second. You know, and Summers, there's a lot of hostility over there now because they assessed a supplementary $1 million tax in late January, and a lot of people are really upset over it. I think we did the wisest thing to wait until we had at least some clear picture, and you had to wait till May 9th because until they adjourned, you didn't know what was going to happen. So, anyway.
No, I think we did the right thing, but are there any questions from anybody sitting here? Because you know my policy, I'll be happy to answer anything.
What's the timetable now? It goes to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow?
Correct. It
And
goes to
then-
the Board of Selectmen, and then they designate what town meeting, and then if the town meeting gets voted on, it then goes to
So
referendum.
what are we looking at in terms of referendum down the road?
That's an
timetable?
excellent question. Now,
Mary?
your meeting is tomorrow, am I correct?
Yes, we just had that discussion today about, we have to put the legal in, and it's like a page and a half legal. And it usually takes 3 days sometimes for them to be able to have the room to put that legal in. So it depends if our meeting goes, Beth said, if it gets through our meeting tomorrow night, then she will immediately go back upstairs when the meeting is over and send it to the JI. But it may not be in until Friday.
And then you have to wait how many days?
Did she say 5
14.
days?
Is it 2
5
weeks?
days.
14 days?
5 days,
5 days.
and then we can have the town meeting, and then after that, it's
You have to
another,
set-
Oh, that's where I was going, the 2 weeks after the town
That's
meeting.
what
So
it
you're
is.
talking, you're going into June then?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we're down to the
So
wire.
we may be looking at a Thursday, I think we said, for a town meeting. I believe we were looking at, but it's all iffy when they can get that
Right.
legal in there.
That would be
Right.
the soonest.
That would be the soonest, would be that Thursday, what is the date, the 25th or the 24th?
The 24th, but that's probably not gonna happen, so it would be the 31st.
For the referendum.
For the referendum.
Right, the town meeting we're hoping for.
And I mean, if it goes through, we're in good shape, because July 1, if it doesn't, then we've really got to hustle.
I'd like to ask a question, if you don't mind. I know Lisa had suggested, what are you planning on having us put forward?
I'm sorry?
What are you planning on having us go forward for the referendum? What's the amount? Lisa had
Okay, well,
suggested,
we have to vote on it, but I'm looking at the .33 mils increase.
you're not going to use the money that Lisa had suggested
The cash fund balance.
And then it would be down to
bring it to zero and then go in with a zero?
What's the cash fund balance right now?
Over 6 million,
What percentage does that put us at?
12%.
It's 12. That much I know.
We're at 12, which we really should be higher, but that's here nor there. So if we take out money now for this, and we're not sure what they're giving back, we're gonna be taking out from there to make up last year. We could be under 10, we could be close to 10% by the time we're done. Or,
I think, based on what was given back last year, that we're already at 12% before we started this year.
but there's no give backs this year.
No,
We're gonna be
there-
paying in this, we're gonna
there's
take
gonna
money
be
out.
give backs this year. They've already said that.
I know, but that's give backs based upon their budget, that's going toward we have $1 million shortfall. So it's not
But
like
they're
we're
not
starting at zero anymore.
Right,
We
but
didn't
they
get $1
always
million
have
in revenue.
additional revenue and.
If they all gave back $1 million, it'd be like we got back nothing. Because our budget started $1 million in the hole because of what the state did. So they would all have to give back more than $1 million for us to have any surplus.
Well, you're assuming everybody's gonna spend every dollar, and in the past, they haven't. If you look at the past audits, they've never spent
And
every
I
dollar.
understand, I'm just
So
not,
there's always at least 200-300
I know exactly what you're
coming
saying
back.
over here because there is always give backs. But the problem is we have $1 million shortfall in revenue that we already know about. So their give backs would have to exceed $1 million for us to say, we don't have to get anything back or give anything additional. We're gonna be giving additional, I'm gonna assume.
But I'm
Because I don't think
basing
there's $1
it
million
on this-
coming
the
back.
Last year, the previous year, not basing it on this year.
What would you recommend, Lisa?
Well, it's not my call, it's your call.
I'm sorry?
It's your call, it's not.
I understand it's our call. What I'm asking you as a CFO, what would you recommend?
I say use the cash fund balance for the 257.
I'm sorry?
I say use the cash fund balance for the 257.
And go with a zero.
Okay, there's one other thing to consider here. And I thought you guys would be the most likely to advance this because you expressed concern before. The infrastructure in the town is literally falling apart right under our feet, okay? The roads in some streets are so bad that you can't even drive up there without feeling like you're driving a covered wagon. And Bruce said that a lot of the repairs he had intended to do on public buildings in town, they let go because they didn't think they had any money. We also have that bridge problem, whatever, I don't know what they're gonna do about it, but their bridge at the Mill Pond store. And the last thing is that, if you have no increase at all, you give everybody a false illusion, oh, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be like this forever, you know, you don't have to worry, we went through all these bad times, and what was the end result? Nothing. I'd rather see that money, a third of a mill isn't very much, I'd rather see that given over to the town for roads and things. I mean, that's what we all promised, that was the whole campaign the last 4 years, everybody was gonna fix the infrastructure, well, nobody did anything. And I think if we you know, go with a zero budget, a zero increase, what you're doing is throwing away a little bit of money that could be used to better the situation in the infrastructure for the future.
We have a less than zero increase right now.
I know.
So anything that we put toward it is gonna, you know, from the, like I said, I'm just, cash balance is a thing of mine, because we keep talking about, what happens if there's a building collapse? What happens if a town building? What happens if the town hall needs major repairs? That cash balance is really important, not only for that, for our funding, but to be able to take care of stuff that comes up. If there's 100 new houses and the crumbling foundation. So I think using a small amount of the cash balance just to bring that mill rate, this is a very small increase. And I'm not saying an increase is good in the taxes, but I'm saying that even using that diminishes our ability to use it in the future. And we know, we keep seeing things that might pop up. So I'm not for using the cash balance toward that.
Yeah, I'm not either. I mean, we don't even know what that bridge is gonna cost yet.
Yep,
In the
it's
house,
closed,
that has
it's
to
closed
be-
today, yeah.
Yeah, that has to be fixed.
I talked to somebody who works for the state, and they just do, this isn't a real number, but he said it might be a $5 million bridge. He goes, and we get back 80%, so we could be paying $1 million to replace that bridge.
Yeah, that's right.
Is the cash fund balance 6 million with no due to the energy fund? Or is there a debit on the back side from the energy fund?
No, that's, includes what the energy fund owes. Yep.
So it's
How much
6
is the
million
energy
plus
getting
what the
back?
energy fund does?
No, it
it includes
includes,
that.
it includes that.
It includes what we're getting back, what you had predicted at the beginning.
No, if the energy fund paid back their money, they
Right,
would
it's
have
already
6
included
million.
in that 6
How
million.
much does the energy fund owe the cash balance right now, do you know?
I do.
Because that's the actual, I mean, that's the actual money of the cash fund balance. Because if the energy fund
Not really.
doesn't reimburse it for another 2, 3, 4 years,
Dog after.
we can't think we got $6 million when we might
right.
have $5.5 million.
Yeah, well, do you know what that number is, Lisa?
I do.
Can you give me that number?
Well, I kind of rather not, just in the sense of the year's not done and the
Okay.
savings aren't coming in.
Okay,
We don't get them till the end of the year.
that's fine, you don't have to
So
say
it's
more.
kind of a false,
Yeah, so I have to assume that's money that we don't have to use right there, that if something were to happen. That's another reason why I'm not a proponent for using that cash balance towards this right here.
Did we have a
And that's
tax increase
exactly
last
why
year?
that fund should not be off budget, because if we can't
You
find out
guys cut
what
everybody
we
down to
owe,
a
if
flat
there's a
line
problem.
last year?
I'm sorry, Mary,
no,
That's
I
okay, I'm
can
sorry.
She
tell you,
knows. She
I do have that.
Mary, you had a
I
comment?
apologize.
That's okay.
No, I was just asking, last year, there was no increase in the mill rate, right? You
Correct.
cut everybody back to 0 increase.
Correct.
And the year before?
That's the same thing. That's what we're complaining about because
But
doing
you
a
cut
zero
them back to
balance.
0,
literally-
and now you wanna keep, now you wanna,
Right, after a while with a zero balance, it's just gonna catch up on you and you're gonna wind up doing all kinds of bonding to get things fixed. And it's a couple of towns around us have done that very thing, have gone year after year after year with a zero balance, with a zero budget.
so you didn't, that wasn't discussed last year of keeping more
No,
in the
because all the
budget?
state aid that was supposed to
Was
come through
there.
came
Right,
through. Yeah,
right,
it
right.
wasn't this- even a small gap this year is what's causing the problem.
What's to believe that they cut us, or they held back funds this year? What's to believe that they're not gonna hold back funds
They
this
can't.
coming budget year?
Well,
They
they've
just
already
passed
voted.
something.
They voted. I
They-
think.
they-
Well, no, they had didn't they have a budget they passed last year?
They did, but they passed something along with this budget that
That
the
said they
governor
can't take it
cannot
away.
cut through
Right.
the middle of the.
Yeah, for the municipal.
Well,
So
we're
there's
gonna get-
no way
we're
we
gonna
can
get.
use any of those funds? or-
Right.
According to the paper, what we're gonna
Project,
get.
exactly, the projected funds.
Can I just raise one other possibility alternative? If we did go to 0, and we did take some money out of the cash reserve, I would suggest that it could be put into the field, the lighting on the field. There's so many groups that are in need of that. And, all the varsity school teams depend on those lights.
But we're not adding to the budget right
We're
now.
not.
Well, but we resurfaced so many times, it's a shame to let part of it fall apart and not do anything, even if we have 5 years left to deal with it.
We have $100,000 in that line item that we're budgeting for
For
it.
that, yeah.
So we're not
you need
moving
to-
that, we're not being irresponsible, we're responsibly budgeting for it.
And how much do you figure it'll be total?
Under 300.
Oh, well, that's good then, okay.
So now,
And those are, in my opinion, those are a want, not a need. And so we do need to budget that out, but I would not be a proponent of using extra money to go toward the lights.
the only thing that we're hearing, or that I'm hearing, is that it is a safety issue. That's what I'm understanding now, and I'm not an engineer.
Sure.
I'm not an electrician, I don't know this to be a fact, but that's what I am hearing.
But that's why you've had,
That is a fact.
they have an engineer report.
I have an engineered report that they came out last May, 10 months ago or 11 months ago, whatever, a year ago now, sorry, that the previous administration had it inspected, and I have the engineer's report, I know I spoke to you about that multiple times.
Right, we did, you said, they said.
And we had them come out again, because I had just found out about that report that was never given to me. So when I found out about the report, we called the engineer and they came out and re-inspected them again.
And I forgot the answer to that, but they're okay?
Yep, and as long as they say they can come out every 2 years, and I can get you guys a copy of that engineered report. I thought I had
I would
given
like-
somebody that.
Not me, I would like a copy of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, excellent.
And
So-
they said that as long as they came out a couple times a year to do inspections on them, and parts around a couple of the bases have to be patched and all of that. And at the time, I also had spoken with Damian Frasinelli, because when they finished having the track surfaced, they had extra money left in there. So I asked him what that was for, and he said nothing, so we're gonna use that for the inspections twice a year.
Excellent,
That's good, yeah.
excellent. Well, that makes me feel a lot better. can
Well, I
meet
did
the
speak
people.
about that multiple times, so.
Well, I had forgotten, I know you
Yeah,
had
yeah.
inspected.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
knew it had been inspected, but I thought that there was a safety issue, but evidently there is not.
Mhm.
So, oh, well, that's good. That's one good
Unless
thing.
the engineer doesn't know what he's
If
talking about.
somebody gets hurt, you know, the liability.
Yes,
is
Mr.
unbelievable.
Macchio.
Of course, a tree could fall on somebody and it could get hurt, and the
Well, yes.
engineer has a signed and stamped, so.
Mr.
think
Macchio,
we're
you have
good.
something to say?
Well, I just have a concern.
Okay.
Because at the last public hearing, at the finance meeting that we had after that public hearing, we had a conversation about minimum budgetary requirements. So I've been doing as much research as we possibly can along with Diane to try to figure out what is that MBR going to be for the town. So what we know is that there was a bill that was put into place because there was a prediction that ECS was going to go down. This was before everything happened politically to have the money given back to the towns, correct? So that bill talked about if you got less, there would be no penalties and blah, blah, you know, legalese, blah, 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 blah. The concern I have now is that after the first public hearing, we were reduced down to 0. So we're at 0%, we're identical to previous year. The state is looking at possibly giving us more money than this year. If they give us more money, and in my calculations, my projections, even with the decrease in enrollment, district average enrollment, we're still going to end up on the plus side of the ECS, which means we'll have more money coming into the town than was given last year, which means our MBR, projected-wise, should be higher than it was this current year. My concern, and I just put it out there because I don't have the number, is that if we stay at 0 as a Board of Education, we will be fined for not meeting the state statute for MBR. Now, we're going to continue to look at it to try to figure out what that number will be. That's sort of the hard part of dealing with the legislature right now. They're not giving us those numbers, but it's just a concern I have, and it's a concern I feel as though I should put out there for you folks as
And
well.
when will this come into play? Is it for this year or for next?
It's for next fiscal year.
So we're
it's
gonna have
next
to keep
year's.
that in mind next fiscal year to make sure.
No, it's for the budget we're about to try to pass.
That's what my question.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry, I'm still living in current fiscal
That's my
year
question.
18.
The ECS for this year is still lower than what we were supposed to get last year, correct?
I'm sorry, Steve?
The ECS amount that we're getting this year is still lower than what we were projected to get last year.
When you talk about this year, do you mean?
The budget we're trying to pass right now. We were promised a certain amount in 17-18, which we know we didn't get. But what I'm saying is that amount, I believe, was higher than what we're getting for this coming promise year,
It
is
was
it?
not.
No.
It's $1,000.
It was 9.3, and now we're getting 9.6 for next year.
No, that's the grant after they took the $1 million out, or the 1.3. What were we supposed to get last year, Lisa, do you remember?
I've changed this number down, but the year before, we got 9.8 million in ECS funds.
Exactly, so what we're
So it was
adopting
higher
for this year is still less.
17.
But we have to compare 17-18 to 18-19. So what I'm looking at in terms of state ECS, the 17-18 value is about 9.3 million, because they didn't consider, what I'm hearing is they did not consider that last 800-something thousand as a reduction in ECS.
Right.
They called it a state holdback.
With all due respect at these meetings in previous years,
That's what
the
they
superintendent has
want.
come in with a number from the state saying, we can't fund below that level. Did you guys get that number?
That's the number, I just said, that's the number that we have been literally hounding the legislature for.
So you don't have that number like we have in previous years, right?
Now, I don't have a solid number right now, but I just put it out there as a concern that when I get it, if they say that the projections are correct, and they end up giving us $240,000 more, right now, we would not be meeting it. If I had the number, trust me, I would absolutely be giving it to you, because I've been trying to get that number for you since that last public hearing.
Now, you've taken into account Bill 5592, the House Bill, the one that allows for a drop in allocations for education from one year to the next, even though student enrollment stayed the same, right?
Right, because that bill actually talks about if you have a reduction in your ECS grant money. We're not fitting into that bill because we're not getting a reduction. we're getting an increase.
And what was the effective date of that bill, do you know?
I do not know that.
It was like April 30th, wasn't it?
Of this year or next
I
year?
think if the final passage was, Brian had it with him last,
It was supposed to go
Yeah,
into,
right here.
it was supposed to, yeah, I mean, I have the, in the binder.
I just
Oh,
want
it's right here.
Oh, I'm sorry, approved April 26, 2018. Is that
approved, but what is the effective date of the bill? They usually say up front.
For fiscal year ending June 30, 2019.
Right, so it's next fiscal.
Next
18,
fiscal
19.
year, yeah, okay. So
which
that's
is the
not
one
even
we're talking about
Which
right
is the one
now.
we're trying
Right,
to,
we're trying
I,
to
based
pass.
upon all these bills that have gone back and forth and the cut in funding and everything else, I really find it hard to believe that anybody's feet are getting held to the fire if we're funding at last year's level. I can't imagine how that's gonna happen. And we really can't make a projection upon that now because we have to push a budget forward for the town to vote on.
I don't disagree, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware, because I promised you I would get you the number, that you have the exact same information that I have right now.
Okay.
Can
Wait,
we
just
make a
this-
change to the budget during the year if we have to do that?
That's, okay, Fran, that's exactly my question, and I'm really not too sure, but I'll have to go to the town, probably town council to find out.
Well, we could always go to
Want
our
the bill?
cash surplus and give them more money. You can do that anytime. You don't
What?
have to-
Yeah, we can, but that's what we're
They
arguing
could have
right now.
with
No, no, but he's saying it's.
My understanding of the budget itself
State.
is once we push the budget to the townspeople and vote on it, we can't change that budget during the year.
You
Not
can always
necessarily.
add more money, it's been done a lot. You may have to have
That was the
a town
highlight.
meeting.
Yes,
You can always
a
give
town
them-
You have to
meeting to
revote,
get
you
more
can't,
money.
exactly,
Yeah,
so.
but
Rather than
if
have
there's
them be
You can
penalized by the
change-
state.
If there's a.
You can change the budget at any time with the town, you can change anything with the town meeting, but you will have to have a town meeting.
Right.
But if
Okay.
you- but if you had a town, if there was a fine involved, and you had a town meeting, and the town meeting voted it down, you're still gonna have to pay the fine, and where's it gonna come from, whether they vote for it or against it?
Yeah.
That's
Obviously,
true.
Still
that's
gotta come
something we
from
have
somewhere.
to, we have to cross that when we get there. We can't do it on a guess right
I
now.
understand that,
That's
yeah.
why I think the prudent thing would be if it does come down to that, we're threatened with it, then you have a town meeting and you increase the allocation, you negate the fine. I mean,
Well, as soon as you have the numbers, you're just gonna have to come back to a meeting and we'll have to discuss it.
yeah,
Right,
so-
the difficulty we're dealing with is the same thing that Lisa's dealing with as far as the numbers, they're calling them projected. So they're
Right.
not giving us a definitive answer
So we've been-
about the
well,
MBR.
You're right, Chris, it's all year
Yeah.
long we've been doing this, it's a
Right.
cat and mouse game all year.
Easy all year.
It's been very difficult.
But we just want you to be aware in case it comes
Right,
forward.
and we don't wanna
there's-
have you penalized because of it. So
That's it.
if that happens and the numbers aren't coming in good, you just have to come back and who knows what, but we'll try to figure out something. I can't guarantee, I'm only one person up here, I can't guarantee anything, but we definitely will discuss it.
I agree with everybody else, though. I think we should leave that .33 increase.
Okay, do you wanna make a motion?
Yep, I make a motion that we leave the budget at a .33 increase for the town. Pass it on.
Are you can't make a motion to go to town meeting for the mill rate, you have to do the figure
The amount,
that's
yeah.
gonna go, and I have it right here.
Yeah,
Same
that goes to the
idea. It's
selectmen.
the same
And
thing.
while
You
you're
just have
at
to
it,
do the
if
number.
you wanna do the service district too, that's the
And do the service district.
I read this as it has to be the same as 2018.
I move the Board of Finance approve the town Stafford budget in the amount of
No, but the.
$40,617,086
It's the same as it was last year. We didn't vote it. It's the same.
for the fiscal year 2018-19 and recommend the said budget to the Board of Selectmen for a town meeting action. And just read this one. I move that the Board of Finance
Let's
approve.
do
Two
one at a
separate
time.
motions, yeah, one at a time. You gotta do one at a time.
Yeah, vote one at a time,
Yeah.
yeah.
The district, he's doing the service district.
You do one at a time.
He did, oh yeah, that's true. Sorry about that, you're right. I was just gonna combine them both, but you've gotta do them separately.
Okay, we did the first one.
Okay, you did the first one. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, motion's on the table and seconded to have the budget at
$40 million right here.
$40,617,086
86.
for the ensuing year. Is there any more discussion? Discussion?
The discussion's only on the board right now.
discussion?
You know, I'm still a little apprehensive.
I have a board member over here, Steve.
Why not?
Okay, so, any discussion? No.
Yeah, well, wait a minute, no, you had something, Jim.
Just still a little apprehensive at the whole variation of, we don't even know where the cash fund balance is.
Oh, I know.
You know, I mean, we're not getting answers, and, you know, we're talking about $387,000 that can come back, which could bring it down to zero. And what's it, 257 to bring it to zero, so that gives 130 left over back in the cash, you know, left back in the cash fund, but we don't know where we're at.
The only thing we do know, though, is we do know we have a lot of projects out there that we should be getting done.
Correct.
So I think to take a lot of money off the table isn't smart at this time.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I can remember when I first came to work for the town, and Lisa wasn't working for the town yet, but I'm sure she remembers it. When it got to the end of the fiscal year, they weren't paying bills, they were holding out, waiting for the tax revenue to come in. And right now, we are doing very good. I mean, you know, everybody's kind of towed the line the last, you know, 6 or 8 years and really brought things around. You know, but then again, I mean, it's the same thing. Every year, it's an increase to the taxpayers.
Well, every year, excuse me, Rich, but every year, I mean, the teachers alone, it's an increase in salary, and it's an increase by contract. It's an increase in and town workers by contract. And both the school and the town have done a tremendous job in keeping their budget down just as low as they can possibly go.
And I do
And
agree.
every year that we do this, it's more of a, I think it's a detriment.
Oh, I've sat there. I understand it.
I know.
But the last couple of years, there was a bunch of money for paving that was taken out, and the budgets kept going down, down, and down. And it's $257,000. It gives the people a reprieve. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when people are living paycheck to paycheck, you know, and they gotta pay their mortgage, and their taxes are in their mortgage, and it's fixed, and they can't get that $20, $30, $40 a week, it's affecting people.
Yes, it can.
And we keep, every year, it's the same thing. Oh, it's only $100, it's only $50. It's, you know, every year it's the same thing. And like I said at the last public hearing, since I moved to town, bought my house, my taxes have doubled. Nobody's salaries are doubled.
Well, there wasn't an increase for the last 2 years. We basically held the line.
Right.
One thing. Second thing, we have some real capital challenges coming up here. There's a serious problem with the sewage situation on West Main Street. If anything happens that blows or leaks or something like that, you're talking about $1 million plus for that project. And then you have the bridge to worry about. We don't know what's gonna come out of the state, and the roads are getting worse every year. I mean, no one would blame anybody who's in office now, the selectmen or the Board of Ed, for an increase, because everybody knows it was hard for them to do this to us. I mean, they've been talking about it I've talked to 50 people about it, and everybody knows that the problem came from Hartford, and that we were dealing with unclear numbers, and that the aid was reduced and so forth. So what you're saying to people is just, you know, we're holding the line, just make up the money that we didn't get from Hartford. I don't know, I just, that $6 million sounds like a lot of money, but you know, you were in the position, if a couple of things go wrong, goodbye to the $6 million, and you're gonna be below the level that the lenders want, and then we're gonna be paying higher interest rates for any bonds and so on. I don't know, I just think it would be wise to hold on at least to that. If I had my way and it were, you know, possible, I would say you might want to even add another $500,000 to increase the money that we have in reserve as a stabilization fund. So if some year the state really does say you're gonna have to fund 30% of the teacher's retirement or whatever else comes down, we'd have some way of preventing a huge tax increase in that 1 year. But I think this is the best solution. I don't know, I know what you're saying, people are hurting, there's no question, but they're hurting all over the state and all over the country. It isn't just here that that's happening, where you can say my taxes doubled. It's doubling for everybody. And you know, you have to maintain a decent level of services or nobody's gonna wanna live here.
And our schools are, not because you're all sitting here, but trust me, it's one of the reasons why a lot of people do move to Stafford for the school system.
Yeah.
It's a marvelous school system, you've worked hard for it. And I really do think that it's something that we should absolutely take pride in and make sure we fund.
And for Mary's end, if she had to ensue another cut and decreased her total even lower, which could have happened, I would have never voted for that. I mean, you can't.
But it could happen,
It
because
could-
if
well,
this doesn't pass,
But we have to
it's gonna
reserve.
go to me, and so the money that you're saving right now by not taking out of the general fund, like Fran said, because you never know about a road or a project, but you're gonna come back and probably cut me. And I know, that's why Lisa suggested.
If it has to
So
be
I'm gonna
cut-
cut from a project.
But Mary, if it has to be cut, I can almost guarantee it's going to be very even and hopefully very small between both of you, unfortunately.
Yeah, I
So,
wouldn't load it off on you people either. I was
I
against
wouldn't.
that. I would have never voted for that.
I know.
Jane, am I allowed to speak?
Oh, that's true.
Sorry.
You're
I
down
don't
there
know if I'm allowed to
already.
speak or not. I'm
Yeah.
a newbie.
I did without asking.
That's right, it's all coming out of the town this time, that's right.
Absolutely, so I don't get it, like,
Well, I mean, and here's the problem. I mean, we either bite the bullet and we do it at zero. I mean, I went through a budget that failed at zero.
Right,
absolutely,
that's it,
so
yeah.
how,
And
that's
we-
exactly.
Because if we go back to the people, if they say no, and we go back to the people, and we take money out of the general fund, that's gonna upset them
Yep,
even
Even
more.
more. 'cause
I
you didn't
lived it,
change
I've been there.
Exactly.
I don't have $250,000 to
He's
cut
right.
unless you wanna
It's a
cut it
small
from the
amount.
roads or the buildings.
I can tell you when the budget failed at zero, had nothing to do with the budget. It had to do with people talking about certain things and making people riled up over a position or something like that, and that's why that budget failed.
Last year, it took two referendums to pass it.
Oh, just one.
Was it the year before that it was
The year
two?
before.
The year before it took two.
Last year went through with one.
Because it was zero.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could always go.
Yeah, but it was the year before.
Additional funding. if it-
Well, you cut it to zero because it went twice.
Now, you know, I
Still
don't
an increase
remember.
in taxes, though.
I think we put it through at zero, and that was the one that didn't go for zero. I'm not sure, but anyway. All right, well, anyway, there is a motion on the table, and it has been seconded to put through the .33 mils. There's been discussion on it. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to Mary's point, if we went in at .33 and it goes down,
Right.
so we have to pay for another referendum, why don't we just take it out of cash balance the second time and make it zero? All it costs is another referendum, whatever, a couple $1,000.
$2,500, and I hate spending that, but then like he just
I
said,
mean,
then
then
it's,
no one gets cut, it ends up being zero. If they vote down to zero the second time, why wouldn't they do it the first time?
Yeah, but right now you have two bridges in town that are shut down.
Right.
that's not gonna come from a cash balance, let's
No,
just
no,
put
I'm
it
just
that way.
saying, that's, so you have to start getting a little money back for something.
Mhm.
I mean, I think we just keep digging the hole deeper every time we come with a zero.
Absolutely, year after year, that's what.
I agree.
You know, there are things that go up and we're making up for it by cutting positions that can't be filled.
Absolutely.
Projects that can't be done.
Still there, and I know, and that's why I came in with as close to zero, because I thought that's what we were told that you wanted us to do, and now, so.
I think
Yeah, and
that
you did very well.
the budget that's presented right now, I think is very responsible on all levels. And consider where we were talking about a month ago, you know, keep in mind, we had a budget, we were talking about proposing a 2.29
Yeah.
mill rate increase.
Absolutely.
And now granted, the state's come through with more money, but in the meantime, the Board of Ed brought their budget down to zero from last year. Mary's below zero. I mean, these are budgets where we're actually spending less money. And we're not even asking for all the money that I think that the state's short of us, including the money they shorted us from last year. So the town is making up a lot of things here. It's not like we're asking for extra to pay for anything, all right? We've actually found ways, with the help of the departments, to save money, to get us to where this is, right here, a 3.3 increase.
So we're gonna call the question?
I'm calling it now. Okay, again, there's a motion on the table, it's been seconded for this .33 mill rate, and I'm calling for a vote. Please individually say yea or nay. Steve?
Aye,
No,
I'm sorry?
yes.
Yes.
no.
Yes.
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 Vote pass, we're putting it through at .33.
Dave, you want to do this one? You looking at this?
And now we have to do the service budget.
Okay, the service district.
Service district.
I move that the Board of Finance approve a service district budget in the amount of $404,516 for fiscal year 2018, 2019, and recommend said budget to the Board of Selectmen for town meeting action.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion's on the table and been seconded for the service district budget. Is there any discussion on that? No? Then I call for a vote. Mr.
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
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 Motion passed. Okay, is there any, I believe the agenda is old, or no, new business. Any new business? Any old business? Any comments from our illustrious audience?
Illustrious
No comments?
decision making.
Thank you for your time.
I
Okay.
make a motion, we adjourn?
Can I make one final, oh, all right, go ahead.
Oh, no, make your final.
I was just gonna say, we agreed as a board to try to work out a compromise budget that we could all support. And this is what it came down to. So I'm hoping that we all go out and advocate for the budget and explain why we think it's the best thing for the town. And present a united front and everybody involved be as active as they can in getting a yes vote approved, so that we're not in deeper trouble.
We already put a sign on top of your car, so.
Good, that's good.
You know there's gonna be the naysayers, but.
Yeah, I'm sure Mark is making his sign up right now.
He's just gonna bring out the one he had from years ago.
Let's hope we can
From
get it.
22 years ago, that's when he started saying the same thing.
I think there's a motion on the table. You want a second?
To adjourn.
Oh, I'm
Yes, I'll
sorry.
second it.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion,
You need this?
meeting is adjourned.